today I'm looking to finish a room that I was working on in my class last night. By the way, awesome class by my lovely friend and mentor, Janaea Frisky. I must recommend the classes at AU Arts. They're awesome. Especially I love the Con Ed classes because they're really small class sizes. But this is the ring. So there's a little piece of reticulated silver there. Get this light here. Okay. There you go. So you can see that texture. You get that from melting one of the alloys in a metal without melting the other alloy. And then it kind of creates like a molten puddle of metal in the middle that can like move and make really cool designs. And like every piece is different and unique, which I love. And then this, I still have to solder the little center into the flower. Try not to drop it, but it's a little sunflower with some little leaves there. So I'm going to solder that next. And then I have the bezel cup that I made for my little teacup cabochon I made the other day. So here we go. And there will be more teacup cabochons coming. This one is for me because I want to make a little gift to myself for my launch because I was really happy with how everything went. So I'm going to make something nice for me to wear. I always keep like the things that I don't think are quite good enough to sell. So I need like a nice piece so I can be like, oh yeah, here's my nice work. Not like, oh yeah, here's my, you know. It's okay. Like I keep nice pieces, but they're not my nicest pieces. Still deciding if I want the leaves up or down. I'm kind of thinking down, they might get caught on less things. Maybe. So we might do that. Okay. So I'm just going to flatten out a little section on the reticulation for the flower. So we're now deciding where the flower is going to go because we don't want to take off any of the reticulation. We don't have to. Okay, right there. That won't. Okay. Oh, another really cool thing you can do with Sharpie when you're making jewelry, you can use it to test if your metal's annealed. So you can put it on your metal before you anneal it, and then as soon as the Sharpie disappears, you know that it's annealed. It can also prevent solder from flowing in certain areas, so just be aware of that and make sure you remove it fully before you start trying to solder on that metal, unless you want to prevent solder from going somewhere. Put on some copyright free music or something because it's a little quiet for me. There we go. That's better. Too quiet. I hope that, I'm not sure if this is a thing, but I wish it was a thing, where like the comments could get read out to you by like a robot voice or whatever. I'm not a big reader, I must admit. I prefer like listening to things like audiobooks. I love audiobooks. I've been listening to some really good ones recently. Stoned, I forget who it's by, but it's all about like the value of jewelry and just like value in general and how it's like created and like why we value things. Anyway, it was a really interesting book, and it really made me reflect on like the purpose of my jewelry and jewelry in general as well. So you want to make sure you flatten out a nice little section on your metal. Because your solder doesn't like to fill gaps, so any little bubbles in reticulation or anything like that will weaken your solder seam. And especially for rings, that's a big deal because people wear rings really rough compared to earrings and necklaces and other things. So you really need to be thinking about the structural integrity of each piece while you're making it. Especially when you like weird little bits and moving parts and things like I like to put on my pieces. Oh, that's too far up. Okay, we're gonna have to move that down a little bit. Okay. There we go. Okay, that looks a lot better. So you can see it's not like perfectly flat, and like solder is decently strong, so you don't need, like on sweat solders, you want to be getting like 90% solder flow. Usually I find, depends on what it's for, what piece, all that. But like here, there's a tiny divot in the middle of that smooth out section, but I think it'll be okay because everywhere else is so flat. And I also flattened out the back of this flower so that it should solder up nice. We'll find out right now. So I'll take you guys over there. We'll try and figure that out. I haven't tried soldering this part yet, but I tried soldering the handle on the teacup last night, and I was so shaky, and I kept melting the handle. It's getting to like angry jewelry mode, and I was like, okay, we're done. Like, that's it. You're done. It's snowing outside, and it's beautiful. Let me show you guys. Yeah, I love it out there. So beautiful. Okay. Got a nice little forehead shot there. Okay. Oh, my cord's not on. It's okay. You guys are going to watch from here. Mostly going to see my back, I guess. Trying kind of. How do I do this? We're going to work with it. It's okay. I really recommend the self-pickling fluxes. It's so frustrating using a paste flux and then you need to pickle every single piece for like 10 minutes and then you have to have like multiple pieces going and it gets confusing. So the self-pickling flux is really nice because it'll sometimes eliminate pickling for you, if not reduce. Because sometimes a little brass brush will be enough to get any fire scale left with the self-pickling flux. So I'm gonna start with hard solder. Well, all these joints are already with hard solder, and I do like most of my joints with hard solder, just because it can be a little bit stronger than medium solder, and make your piece a little more durable over years. But medium's really good if you're just learning. And it gets the job done. Like, there's nothing wrong with medium solder. It's just hard solder, you know that you're getting that extra layer of protection because the solder itself is a little harder. But it is harder to melt because it is harder. I'm so happy about this torch. I was using a benzomatic, like propane barbecue torch for probably the first 8 months. And it worked. Like, it worked. But it was very frustrating, and I couldn't do these small pieces that I wanted to do. So I'm really happy. I got my hands on this torch for like $80 off of Facebook. I had to buy a gas cylinder and stuff, but that's no big deal. I want to get a oxygen concentrator though, because it's a little expensive getting the oxygen bottles all the time. I don't want to start affecting the price of my pieces. Yep. So I'm going to put my ring in the cross-locking tweezers so that you're only fighting with one piece. You're not chasing your entire piece around your fire block. It gets very frustrating very quickly. So when I sweat solder things, which is when you solder two flat things, I like to put my solder on the larger plate and then just barely melt it before I bring in my other piece. And I just want to heat that up nice. And you kind of see it almost click into place most of the time when it hits that nice little flat spot you made. Now, when you're soldering, you kind of get in this loop of like you keep soldering and soldering and soldering. So my advice, like when you think you might have got it, just quench it and check it, because otherwise you'll keep pouring solder into that joint, and then you'll reduce either the carat of your gold or the concentration of the silver in your piece, and it's not going to create as much of a quality piece. Still okay, but just reducing the amount of silver that's actually in the piece. But obviously not okay if it's to the point where it's not 925 anymore. So try and, keep it a little under control there. These leaves turned out so well. I made this one ring the other day though, and it made me realize I have to start bending my silver a little slower because I kept snapping off all the little pieces, and it was so frustrating. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to bend that all the way down to the reticulation plate without damaging it. We're going to give it a try, because there we go. Okay. She made it. Hooray. Her sister's not going to, but that's okay. She's just a little baby. So there is the first little... Oh, let me get some better light here. Okay, it's not focusing. I'll show you guys. See if I can do this. Here we go. So that's sunflower on there. So next I'm gonna pickle that. Nope. Next I'm gonna remove the little piece of silver that got stuck to the other side. I was doing something else. I didn't like it, but we're not gonna talk about that. So I'll just file that down a little bit. Yeah. And then we'll add, I'm kind of thinking about sticking that on next and then trying to add the teacup. But I think I might need a little plate for my teacup as well. I have some little discs. Let me cut this. Oh, these are all domed. I think I have some flat ones in really big though. I lost my discs. I had a bunch of little discs I cut out the other day when I was feeling unproductive, so I was like, well, may as well get something done. Ah, here we go. I'm not sure if these are big enough. For the teacup especially, I think the teacup will look kind of, we'll say it works. We'll say it works. Okay, put the little teacup on there. So, I'm just going to start by, you can see there's like a little burr on there, so I'll take that off. with a little needle file. I could use my big file, but this is a small piece, so it's a little trickier to hold on to with a big file. Use the tools I get. This is a hand vise. I really like this one because my issue with like vices and everything is that it's too hard. Like, it's not hard to use, but it's too frustrating to use because you're tightening and loosening it all the time as a Julie to like adjust it and get to all the areas. But this one is just a quick and easy little twist of the handle and you can adjust it. It's also like relatively cost effective. I think it was like 25 bucks, so it wasn't too bad for how much like easier it makes your job. I'll just get you guys a better view here. There we go. That was a big bird. I probably should have used my bigger file, but I always nick my fingers with it, so I try and just keep it to bigger pieces to save my fingers. Okay. Oh, I forgot to start pickling that. So the pickle, it's just a bath of some type. There can be, like, you can use an acid, you can use like a salt water bath too. Like, there's some options, but it's basically just meant to loosen that fire scale and lift it so that when you clean your metal, it's a lot easier. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Okay. Just had to plug it back in because my phone is dying. That's one thing. Like, I kill my phone like 3 times a day because I'm using it for my social media, to manage my website, and everything. So, let me back this up a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing here. There you go. Okay. So this is like a damping block. I don't know. I've heard it called a lot of things by different people. But, and then you have your doming punches. This one is not the right size for this whole thing, but the ones that I have that are bigger are wooden, and so they don't work quite as well, but they're a lot cheaper, and they don't scratch, like, they don't, move your metal a little slower, I'll say, so they can, like, make it easier for bigger pieces not to, like, crease a little bit when you're initially, I don't know, that's what I've found, but, and, like, you shouldn't really be using a rawhide hammer for this, but I'm trying to break mine in still, so it kind of will dual purpose here for me. Okay, so this is going to be a little plate for the teacup, so I'm actually just going to like flatten it a few times now too, just because I think like teacup plates aren't perfectly domed. Hey, see, you know what I mean? Like we gotta make the bottom a little flat. Okay, we're getting there. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay. And then, so I already drilled a tiny little hole in the bottom of the teacup. And that's what this is for. So you actually take like a tiny little piece of metal and you put it all the way through and then into your ring. And this isn't what's holding it to the ring. It just holds it in place essentially while you solder it, so it doesn't like shift and move everywhere. Yeah, the solder joint should be flat under it, and that's what holds it, because that's not big enough to be holding something on a ring that's as big as this teacup. Oh wow, this handle's too big. I always like really big handles, but I have two because I kept melting them, so I was like, hey, I'll make two, then I won't keep melting them. But the torches, the schoolers, are a lot bigger than mine at home, so it's just a little more challenging to get the tiny little places without melting little components like this. Okay, that looks a little better. Okay, so I'm gonna stick the handle on first because it's very frustrating. The stressful part now. Yippee! Okay. It's a later problem. So I got half of the handle on. I sometimes find it easier when you get half of a joint, just quench it, fit it up again to your second joint, if you can. I got that fitted up. I'll just, now, see, this is an example where if I didn't have the self-pickling solution, I'd have to pickle it and then redo it. But because I have the pickling solution, I can just go right back in and do my second joint, which saves a lot of time. So I'm still using hard solder. It's difficult to do tiny components like that with hard solder, but I like to push as much of the small things to have hard solder as possible, because it'll increase the strength of those tiny little pieces which are so vulnerable. So whenever possible, I try and use hard solder on small parts. And if you ever buy like a spinner ring or something, I always use hard solder on the post of it that is like the axle for the spinning, to make sure that it'll be strong and last a long time. I bent my handle a little bit, but that's not a big deal. Don't panic when you bend something you're soldering, just figure out. I've panicked so many times, and it's so sad, because then you'll like mess up parts that you can't fix as easily. Boy, it's already been half an hour. Time flies when you're having fun. Okay, now, oh, what am I running over? Nothing, apparently. Okay, so I'm going to start by doming it out with a doming punch to make sure that it's nice and round. So I'm not actually going to hit it. I'm just going to like take, whoop, and drop it apparently. But I'm going to take it and just kind of start by twisting it around the punch. And then I'll take and just get a bit more pressure on there. There we go. Okay. Okay, we're going to do one little tap with the hammer. I just don't want to break that handle off. Okay. There we go, it's looking a little more round. Just do my pliers. Oh, that's what I forgot. So I like to put a tiny little, like, foot base on my teacups. I just feel like it makes them look more like a teacup and less like a little blob. This is why you want to keep every single little piece of silver you cut off, because, unless you drop them. Look at how tiny these little pieces, and I can still use that, so, oh, unless I throw it on the ground. Let's go find that. Found it. That piece is being stubborn, so we're just gonna get a new piece. I haven't tried a round one yet, so we're gonna try a round one. Hello, Spencer. How's the shower? Good. 15 minutes? Okay. It's Valentine's Day, so I'm gonna go out for a little datey poo with my lovely partner. But thank you for joining me on the live, and I'll see you next time.